Hey everybody, Mark Dawes here, and I just want to talk to you today about something called the Law of Unintended Consequences. Now, I may have spoke about this before, but I thought I'd just touch on this once again because it's something I learned from a great professor of law called Gary Slapper. And basically, the Law of Unintended Consequences means is that you take so much effort, or you put so much effort into trying to be risk averse, that you consequently create a risk that you wouldn't have created if you'd have dealt with the thing properly in the first place. So what does that mean? Well, for example, there's a lot of drive at the moment with reducing restrictive practices and so on not to use any techniques that may cause discomfort, harm or pain. And I get that because no one wants to actually hurt or injure anyone. I get that. But where people now are saying you can't use this stuff, they're now using less effective techniques which won't control the risk. And therefore the fallout from that is that more people are likely to be subsequently hurt and injured, and some could even die. Now, when I spoke to Gary Slapper about this years ago, he said, look, he said, if you deal with toxic chemicals, he said, it's quite simple. He said, you have to have the right control measures in place. You've got to cordon, you've got to contain, you've got to control, you bring the people in with the right equipment to actually clear up the toxic spillage, if you like. And people who are not trained and don't have that equipment would actually exit the area so they weren't affected by the toxicity of the stuff that's spilled. And then he said, it's the same with human beings. If human beings are behaving in a toxic way, i.e. they're presenting behaviour that challenges and it's aggressive and potentially violent, then people who are not trained can leave, so they're not affected by that. But then the trained people that come in need to have the right equipment, the right kit and the right control measures and the right training to be able to deal with the toxic spillage. And in this case, a human being who may be behaving, forgive me for saying so, in a toxic way. So what happens if we then, in a toxic chemical spillage situation, took away the protective clothing because we said you can't have that? And in the restraint world, we said we took away handcuffs because we don't want mechanical restraint used because we don't like them. What happens if we said, well, we won't provide you with the correct skills to cordon off the area or control the situation effectively, so the spillage could escape and affect people? And in the same way, in the restraint world, we say, well, we don't want you to use effective techniques or to have, effective techniques that may cause discomfort, harm or pain and bring the restraint to an end quickly because we don't like them. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about the law of unintended consequences. The fact is, and one of the factors is, people die as a result of restraint going on for a prolonged period of time. So if you have an effective technique and provided it's used reasonably in the circumstances, it's proportionate to the risk it's trying to prevent, if that brings the restraint to an end quickly, that is more likely going to reduce risk overall instead of having less effective techniques that are actually going to allow the restraint to go on for a protracted period of time and maybe even end up with people hurt, injured and, God forbid, killed. So that's the law of unintended consequences, and I mention it because yet again today I've had another email saying, we've been told by our employer that we're not allowed to use these techniques, we have to do away with these techniques. And allegedly, and I'm going to say allegedly now because it's not me saying so, it's in this email, if we do use it, then we shouldn't actually say we've used it, we should call it something else. I'll leave that to you. Have a great day.